All right, hey, this is Jason from Strength Running, and I'm joined today by Matt Frazier of No Meat Athlete.
How you doing, Jason?
I'm great. We're here at the waterfront in DC. Veg Fest in DC just ended today, and I'm here to chat with Matt about his new book that is out today, which we're really excited about. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it is exciting. It's been very, very busy, but exciting nonetheless.
Yeah, I'm excited for you. And before we get into the book, I have a couple questions from strength running readers who are curious about the vegetarian, vegan lifestyle and kind of how it relates to running and how you get the nutrients you need to perform.
Okay, sure.
So, all right, I have a question from Saboan, and he's curious, what does a vegan or vegetarian order when they're eating out, but when they're looking for something hearty and filling? Do you have any go-tos that you kind of go for?
It's tricky if you're just going to a normal restaurant. Like if you're going to Applebee's or Outback, chances are you're not really going to find that filling food. So what happens is you start to be more selective in the restaurants that you actually choose. So for example, we know that we can go to Chipotle and get their vegetarian burrito and get brown rice in it, black beans, and then all the other, toppings, guacamole. I mean, so you can eat one of those things and be pretty stuffed, like as anyone else is after Chipotle, I'm sure. But I mean, and you find the vegan restaurants near you, but a lot of Thai food always works. Indian food works well, and I mean, for the most part, those types of foods are rice combined with some sort of beans, be it chickpeas or sometimes a tofu, which is a soybean.
Yeah.
You just kind of have to explore. Like you kind of get out of the American food box and start realizing that there are all these other places that maybe you never even bothered to check out. That was one of the truly great things about it when we went vegan.
And I noticed that you mentioned guacamole, which is healthy fat, but it is very fatty, and that's very filling too.
So, yeah, I mean, tons of calories. Like part of the difficulty, more than protein, as people always ask about, is how do you get enough calories in general?
Yes.
And as I'm not a huge fan of eating a whole lot of oil because I prefer to just get it from Whole Foods. So avocado is fantastic, and guacamole,
Yeah.
you know how filling and delicious that is.
I love it. It's one of my favorite foods.
Yep.
That's great, because I have another question about protein, and it seems like everyone always asks about protein when they're talking to a vegetarian or a vegan. And I know in a previous interview that I did with you, I asked you about this.
Right.
Okay, so let's see. How do you get? This is an interesting question because it's super specific.
Okay.
How do you get more than 110 grams of protein per day? Betsy said that she's struggling with this one.
Okay. My first answer is you don't. I mean, I guess you can, and I can certainly give you some suggestions. But if you look at like the U.S. DRI, Dietary Reference Intake, I think is what it stands for. They recommend. I'm assuming Betsy is a female. 40,
I hope so.
45 grams or so of protein per day. And as an athlete, yes, you might want a little bit more than that. Just really, I think, because you want more calories than a normal, sedentary person does.
Right.
So if you need 20% more calories, then you also need 20% more protein, which just sort of naturally rises with the calories. That's my take on it. So, I don't get 110 grams of protein per day by any means, but if you wanted to, and when I actually first went vegetarian, I was far more worried about this because I had the same sort of attitude. I just thought protein was so important that you had to get it. Like the other nutrients, carbohydrate and fat, didn't matter. It was protein that was the healthy one. I had to make sure I got it. So my trick in those early days was to make sure I got some amount of protein in every single meal I ate. And me, like most runners, I ate 5-6 meals a day. They weren't necessarily big, huge meals, but some were the snacks. And I would just make sure that I didn't fall into the trap that some vegetarians and vegans fall into, which is like just having pasta for dinner or just having salad for your snack. So you just kind of put protein in it. So sprinkle nuts on the salad, put beans on the salad, put protein powder in your smoothie. You can start the day with 30 grams of protein right in your smoothie, and then depending on if you do soy or not with beans, you can easily get 25, 30 grams of dinner, and then it's a matter of filling it in throughout the day with snacks.
Yeah, and I know that you do a smoothie pretty much every day.
Yep.
And that's probably an easy place for any vegetarian or vegan to throw in a scoop of protein powder and get. Some of those are 20 to 25 grams too.
And it's good for anyone who really wants to supplement with anything, a smoothie is such a good vehicle, just way to get it, like that in a way that's
Yeah.
not necessarily disgusting that it might be otherwise. So, and it's also great for just like starting the day. For example, and this is weird, this is my weird vegan coming out, but I'll put kale and spinach into the smoothie, and you honestly, like I can't taste it. I guess maybe I've gotten used to it, but just doing that every single day, that's like a little mini salad every day extra that I am getting than I otherwise would. So I love a smoothie for so many reasons. That just being one of them.
Okay. All right. Let's transition to another question about food and fueling. So Jill has a question about ultra marathons because you just did a 100-mile ultra marathon. How do you fuel for an ultra? There's a lot of calculators out there where you can plug in your body weight, how much time you're going to be on your feet, and it'll kind of spit out, this is the number of calories that you need for your ultra. So did you use one of those calculators, or how do you go about determining how many calories that you needed for the race?
Yeah, I'm much more, I don't know, holistic than that, and I tend to kind of go by hunger. I'm not really that into calculating how much food you need to put in your body. I tend to believe that your body will tell you what it needs if you are eating primarily whole foods instead of processed foods, because processed foods have a way of messing with the feedback mechanisms in your body that tell you when you're hungry and when you're not. Racing is a little bit different because that's a time when it is okay to eat more processed foods like energy gels, sports drinks, things like that, which in a way do trick your body and let you get more calories than you might otherwise be able to take in from whole food. So I just went with some basic guidelines, and I tried to make sure that I got at a minimum 30 grams of carbohydrates per hour, generally a little bit more if I could handle it. I think I averaged something like 200 calories per hour because I also got some fat and protein.
Yeah.
I'm not positive about that just because I said I don't pay that close attention to it. But in an ultra, especially one of 100, not just a 50K, 100 is much slower than that, much slower pace. And at the level I'm doing it, which is I'm not and by any means trying to win my 100-mile race or going at max intensity. I'm trying to get the thing done and not quit. So sometimes the food that would best help me perform was not necessarily the food that would make me the happiest and make me not want to quit, right? So while some experts at ultra running will tell you you should really just, sugar is all your body really needs. It doesn't need the starchy and the fats and the salty. You need some salt, of course, but the point is, even though those foods might be best for performance if you're trying to win the race, you can eat, people eat, not me, of course, because that's not vegan, but people would eat chocolate chip cookies or ham sandwiches, just things you would never hear about in a marathon, but that's kind of what certain people are craving. French fries, all kinds of things like that. And I ate my share of junk food. It just happened to be of the vegan variety that I had brought along on my own, because it just makes you comfortable.
And I think if you're running 100 miles, you can give your diet a little bit of a leeway there.
Yes, you can.
Okay, here's an interesting follow-up question. As you were training for the ultra marathon, and specifically the 100-mile, because I know you've done a 50-miler, you've done a 50K.
Yep, a couple of each.
So as you trained for the 100-miler, did you notice any difference in body composition?
I can't say that I did. Really, as soon as I got into ultra running, I became a little bit thinner. And I'm a pretty lean guy to begin with, so it's not something that I'm happy about. But some ultra runners, like Mike Arnstein, who's known as the fruitarian because he really eats entirely fruits and a few raw vegetables, I heard him give a talk up at his Woodstock Fruit Festival. It's on YouTube. You can just Google his name if you want. And he said that his racing weight, he likes to be 117 pounds, and he's winning 100-mile races.
How tall is he?
I don't know, but I think he's probably about my height, our height, 5'6", 5'7",
Yeah.
I don't know, in there somewhere. But that's, as skinny as I am, that's still 15 to 20 pounds lighter than I am most of the time. So, I think the sport of ultra running tends to favor a much leaner frame. Any extra weight makes a huge difference in a marathon, so you can imagine the difference it makes in 100 miles. So I definitely leaned out somewhat, lost a small amount of muscle mass, some fat, but it wasn't you would think that maybe if you did 100 miles, you would just all of a sudden have six-pack abs, and it's just no one can resist your six-pack abs, but it didn't unfortunately happen like that.
Let's talk about your book. Comes out today. I've had the pleasure of reading an advanced copy. And, okay, so tell people what exactly is it about. If someone has never read your blog before, what should they expect in the book?
Okay, well, first of all, we should say you had more than the pleasure of reading it because you actually contributed a significant amount to the running section.
I did.
Jason actually helped large part in writing the 5K and 10K plans, which is very helpful, and read over the running chapters to make sure that I didn't say anything that was like totally wrong, because I tend to defer to you on running issues. But yeah, it's really divided into two sections, and I think of it as sort of a guidebook to this lifestyle, and this lifestyle meaning plant-based diet and active, probably running. Talk about distances up to half marathon distance in the book. I didn't go beyond that just because I didn't want it to get. I feel like marathon training really deserves its own book, and it's just such a big commitment to do that I wanted. I felt like it would almost be unfair or wrong to make people think that you can just read a few pages and then you're set for marathon training.
Right.
But the two sections are, one is on diet and entirely based on this plant-based diet, and a big focus on what I believe the benefits are from my own experience and from talking to others, including some pretty top-level athletes. Scott Jurek is one of the, a lot of runners know him, and he's a vegan who's done very, very well. Rich Roll, Brendan Brazier, vegan endurance athletes, and many of them have talked about the same exact benefits that they've noticed, the reasons they choose this diet. So I talk about a lot those. How do you transition to the diet? Like, no matter where you're starting from, how can you actually get to the diet in a way that make sure it actually lasts, not a way that you're going to do for a week and then say, this is terrible, I want a hamburger.
Yeah, so I think that sustainability with the diet is really critical too. It's not something where you go 100% in it and you try to be perfect with it from the get-go.
Sure.
I think that's a recipe for failure too.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's in the running section. There's the exact same focus, which is actually really like an underlying focus of the book, is this idea of how do you change a habit in a way that makes it actually last. So when we talk about running, most of the people listening to this will already be pretty dedicated runners, but for someone who hasn't, because I also wrote the book for that person, I wanted someone who was a vegetarian but wasn't fit or hadn't ever gotten into exercise. I wanted them to learn how do you start running, and my approach is the same. It's to do it in a very gradual manner, rather than saying I'm going to run for half an hour every single day and never miss a day. And certainly there's a place for that sort of training and that mindset at higher levels, but I think at the beginning it's so much more about training your brain and your willpower before your body.
Yeah, and when you say like transition to this lifestyle and plant-based, it's not just vegan, because you're a vegan, but this book is more for the plant-based athlete, so it could be vegetarian as well.
Yeah, I use that term plant-based really intentionally vaguely. Like, I want it to be whatever. If to you that just means a diet that's based mostly on plants, but you still eat chicken wings or a burger once a week or twice a week, like, I mean, ethically, that's not for me. Like, I choose a lot to be 100% vegan for ethical reasons, but I'm of the mindset, and this is something that not everyone agrees on, but I think that's way better than the alternative. And in terms of health too, but also for the ethical and environmental reasons. So I'm happy, however far you can get. Like, I think that's great, and I encourage that. I'm not like the exclusive type who says it's all or nothing and it's no good. So like the recipes in the book, and there are 50 or so of them, they are all vegan. I mean, of course there are options if you wanted to add cheese or whatever. I mean, to all the pasta dishes, you could always do that, but that really wasn't the point, and they are vegan, and they're intended to be eaten that way. So I think people will be surprised at how substantial and easy actually to make vegan food is.
Yeah, and I mean that's like one of the things that I really like about your blog, No Meat Athlete, and the book too, is the fact that you're not saying it's an all or nothing approach. You can be 90% vegan or 60% vegan, and being part of the way there is better than not being, plant-based at all.
And there are very different approaches. Like at this Veg Fest, there are a lot of people whose work I admire, who would say something else. They would say, that's not enough. You need to get all the way there, because there's too much suffering and all that stuff. And all of it may be very, very true, but I just know when I was not yet vegetarian, but thinking about it, that sort of mindset turned me off of it. I think that actually prevented me from getting into it, because I just thought it had to be this, big, high-pressured thing, and I just think the more welcoming attitude would have spoken to me back then a little bit better. So that's kind of the only way I know how to speak in. So that's what I do.
Yeah, I mean, it just reminds me, like with running, not everyone can train like an elite runner, or even close to what like the elites do. Not everyone can run 7 days a week or run double-digit mileage every day. And of course, as like a coach and as someone who like really respects what those elites can do, of course I don't do any training that's even like remotely at the level that these guys are, but
right.
I love seeing runners who are like, I'm gonna start at 3 runs a week, 20 minutes or something. And I think that kind of approach is very similar to what you're saying in the book with both running and diet too, is let's just get you started,
Right.
and then it's up to you to see how far you want to take it.
Yeah, like I was talking to Rich Roll today about this exact thing, and he said the idea of that a lot of times he will tell someone who doesn't know where to start. He says, just start with a smoothie in the morning, like especially not necessarily going vegetarian, but starting to eat healthy. And he said, just start with that and put some greens in it, make it a little bit kind of hippie-ish and having some little weird thing. But he said, just do that and don't even worry about the rest of the day. And what that does, that's almost like a little like wedge kind of leverage that you start doing that, and then maybe after a few weeks you start to make your next meal a little bit more like that, just because you start to feel better and you don't want to put junk in your body, and you kind of just go that direction. And a few months from then, you may or may not be 100% vegetarian. It depends on the person, of course, and what your goals are with the diet.
That's something I actually took from you is the concept of the smoothie can be a vehicle for like a huge number of healthy foods just packed into like a glass.
Yeah.
And you can just start your day with that. Like my wife started making green smoothies like a bunch of like 4 or 5 times a week. And when I read Rich's book, Finding Ultra, he does that like a couple times a day. I mean, he's always into smoothies, and I started experimenting. Like, people think kale smoothies are gross, but it really depends on how you,
Right.
how you structure it. And some of the recipes in your book and on nomeatathlete.com have made my smoothies a lot better, because I'm notorious for making terrible smoothies. Because I'm like, let's just put everything in the fridge in there, and they end up being disgusting.
Right, like the pond sludge type.
Yeah, pond sludge, and you kind of have to chew it a little bit.
Yeah.
It's not very good. But I really like that as a way just to get started with not even like being plant-based, but just being healthier.
Yeah, right.
And like
Exactly.
you can, like you said, you can get in like a salad's worth of vegetables, and even fruit too.
And we put nuts and seeds in ours. And granted, ours are getting weirder and weirder every day. But that's like, to me, that's such a great way, because I would never eat for breakfast like a banana, a couple berries, spinach, kale, pumpkin seeds, chia seeds. Like all
And
these
I don't
things.
think anybody is going to eat
Right.
that amount of food just by itself.
That is one criticism of smoothies. Like people who are like really, really into the raw vegan and whole foods say you shouldn't do that because it lets your body take in way more than you otherwise could. So I think you need to be careful with it, and if you have like a weight problem, maybe it's not the best thing to be drinking some huge smoothie every morning. But if you're an athlete and you're burning a lot of calories, then I honestly think it's better to take in more of those good things than fewer. But it's arguable for sure.
Yeah, I think so. All right, well, hey, we'll wrap this up. It's getting dark.
Yep.
But I just want to say thanks for doing the interview. I know my readers are going to love it. And if they're curious about being a plant-based athlete, or even just if you're a beginner runner and you want to get started being a healthier runner, I know the No Meat Athlete book is going to be really helpful. Like Matt said, I helped with the more advanced training section, and it has some really, really great running advice in there. So Matt, thanks again.
Thank you, Jason.
And I'll include a link to the book on Amazon underneath the video. So if you want to
Absolutely.
check it out, check it out.
And I'll be doing a book tour too, so across the country. So if you are,
Should mention
check out
that.
my site, nomeatathlete.com/book-tour. I'll be at 40 different cities in the U.S. over the next 2 months or so. So by all means, come out. You do not have to be vegetarian or vegan. Like, don't be scared away because you're not that. No one's gonna.
He's really not
criticize
that
you.
bad, guys.
No, I hope you can tell that I'm not exactly gonna be angry at you for not being vegetarian. Yeah, come out, say hi, tell me that you found about me from Jason's site or whatever, and it'd be great to meet you.
All right. Thanks, man.
All right, thanks, Jason.